Welcome, everyone. My name is Ken Anderson. I'm the Dean of the Business School here at Gonzaga, and I'd like to welcome you to a special edition of Mondays at Noon. Today we are featuring our long-running Careers in Finance program. Our Careers program began a few years ago, and its intent is really to bring professionals, many of them alums of Gonzaga, to campus, or in this case, to our virtual campus, and talk a little bit about what they do, their journey to where they are today, and then network a little bit with our students. So it's really an opportunity for our students to learn about different types of careers within a particular discipline like finance, as well as to make some connections with Zags, who we all know are very willing to help out. A quick reminder before we get started, this is being recorded. We always start our Mondays at Noon with a reflection. And I would ask us just to take a moment and reflect on the good things in your life right now. What it is that you value and love and turn to for support, comfort, and joy in times of need. Thank you. With that, I am pleased to introduce to you our moderator, for lack of a better term today, a gentleman by the name of John Odor. John attended Gonzaga and is now the co-founder of Chinook Capital Advisors over in the Seattle area. He is a wonderful supporter of the business school and very, very happy that he's with us here today. So with that, John, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Ken. And yeah, just your reflection there on kind of good things in life. I think being associated with Gonzaga is a big plus in my life, and I think one of the themes today will be to look for the silver lining. Look for a blessing, and I think the fact that this is a virtual Careers in Finance, maybe the silver lining is more people can participate. And so we hope that you find the next hour or so useful to you. So yeah, just some housekeeping. If you have a question, use the chat, and Michael McIntyre, Zag alum, who's kind of behind the scenes here, he'll note that, and he'll be reading out your questions in the queue of the Q&A later on. So right now, I'd like to just I'd like to read out our speakers here so they can kind of wave, and then we're gonna go to some slides, and again we'll give each speaker, each panelist an opportunity to formally introduce themselves. So first of all, Tim Henderson, Tim with Morgan Stanley, how you doing? Jaylene Howard. Hi, Jaylene. Jill McEntee, D.A. Davidson, Zach Abbruzza with JP Morgan, Zach, and last but not least, Stanford Wyatt with August Partners. Yeah, so that's our panelists. It's a diverse group of professionals in the finance industry, and you'll get a chance to hear them speak momentarily. So with that, Michael, should we go to the presentation? And hopefully everybody can see the presentation. Go ahead and move forward, Michael. Yeah, so here's our agenda. We will, the panelists will talk a little bit about themselves. Then we'll share some thoughts on breaking into financial services, some tips on networking, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. We do know that some students need to leave at 1 o'clock. So we'll try to finish our kind of presenting, speaking part at 1, and then we'll stay around for as long as we need to for the Q&A. Go ahead, Michael. So just to make sure that you're awake here, so a little trivia, and I think this is maybe a little bit of a tradition here to have a couple of trivia questions. So as you know, there's some very renowned VC funds based here in the Pacific Northwest. So question is which one of these VC funds is the largest? And the answer is Ignition Partners. Yeah, so very successful VC fund in Seattle. A couple of their big exits, DocuSign and also Aptio, both public companies. Next trivia question. So wealth managers, these are some of the largest wealth managers that are based in the Pacific Northwest, managing multi-billion dollars in wealth. So which name associates with which value? And Michael? Yeah, so Brighton Jones at 5.3 million is the largest. In fact, Cornerstone was just acquired by an East Coast wealth management group, so they're actually combined, probably a bit larger, and then some of the other ones is there. So again, just some light trivia to get us going here. Go ahead to the next slide, Michael. Yeah, so just introduce myself. I'll be the moderator, and just a brief background on myself. After attending Gonzaga, I was really attracted to finance, and I started my career in commercial banking, so not dissimilar to where Zach is now at JP Morgan. From there, within commercial banking, got into investment banking and worked for 2 bulge bracket firms, and came back to the Northwest 10 years ago to work in middle market M&A. I worked for a Seattle-based firm called Meridian Capital, and then 3 years ago, with my business partner Ed Kirk, we launched Chinook Capital Advisors, which is a lower middle market M&A advisory firm based in Seattle. So both the co-founders are ZAG alum, and the cherry on top of the sundae, Michael McIntyre, our associate, is also a ZAG alum, and we just hired a recent intern, is also a ZAG. So the ZAGs outnumber the Huskies 4-1 right now, 4-2 in the firm. So it's it's same story on the basketball court as well, as we know. So yeah, without further ado, we'll move on to our panelists. So Tim Henderson, take it away.
Can you hear me now? Michael, did you unmute? John, can you hear me? Okay. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone logging in today and joining this panel. This is I've been part of this every year, so this is it's crazy how many years it's been going on. But hopefully you are all getting something out of this. So as John was saying, I'm an executive director and financial advisor with Morgan Stanley in Seattle. And so what does that mean? We advise high net worth, ultra high net worth clients on all aspects of wealth management. It's traditionally building and managing core portfolios for clients. So my day-to-day consists of everything from talking to clients about what's going on in the markets, the recent correction, followed by the rally that we've had today in the markets, to quarterly or monthly or daily portfolio updates in terms of what's going on in clients' portfolios, talking to clients, sometimes clients that John is working with, helping sell the business. I'll be talking to those business owners about the potential liquidity event that they're having and what they're planning on doing with that liquidity and what that liquidity event means to them in terms of a portfolio, lifestyle, and some of their long-term financial goals. So it really is varied day to day. We work with a pretty select group of clients. All of our clients are ultra high net worth clients. So there's a lot of complexity involved in their balance sheet. There's real estate holdings, there's private business interests, there's oftentimes private equity. John was talking about venture capital companies in the Northwest. Many of our clients are invested in those companies. So we get to touch a lot of different parts of the financial markets, which makes it a lot of fun. My career path. So I've been with Morgan Stanley for the past 2 years, but I've spent my entire career in financial services. I started my career at Goldman Sachs down in the San Francisco Bay Area on a corporate and venture services group. We were working with and advising venture capital companies on their holdings. So as venture capital companies invest in startups, the startups then go public. We were advising them once those companies were public on what they should be distributing back to their limited partners. From there, I moved over to private wealth management and actually up to the San Francisco office for Goldman Sachs and was there through 2007. And that's when I started in private wealth management and working with ultra high net worth clients. In 2007, my wife and I decided to get someplace a little bit smaller. I grew up in Seattle, so came back to Seattle, was with UBS for a couple of years before moving over to JP Morgan. And then most recently over to Morgan Stanley. And Jill, I think you're up next.
Hi there. Jaylene Howard. Thanks, Tim. Always good to see you. Like Tim, I've gotten to participate in the Careers in Finance panel a couple of times over the last decade, 15 years. It's been wonderful. So thank you guys for joining us today. Obviously, these are unusual times. They're unusual times for all of us in our roles and how we are working with our clients and how we're working with one another, and certainly different for you as you embark both on school and as you start to look at internships and jobs. I work at Parametric Portfolio, and Parametric is the largest asset manager now in the Seattle area with nearly $300 billion in assets under management. Those assets cover equities, fixed income, alternatives, and implementation. We are a systematic asset manager, which means no market views. That is, I think, one of the big parts that I like about Parametric. It's been different than some of the other firms I've worked with. But the focus is really bringing on, bringing risk management and efficient implementation into portfolios. It's also about customization and allowing investors to create a portfolio that can align to their values. So I can get more into that if you'd like to know more about it. But my particular role at Parametric is on the institutional team. I work as the director of consultant relations, and so my goal and my day-to-day job is to go out and develop and maintain world-class relationships with research and field consultants at institutional investment consulting firms based here in the United States. The largest of those firms is Mercer. The others noted, as you can see on the screen, Cowen, Makita, RBK, and Wilshire, all top 10 institutional consultants. So what I have to do and what for my firm is create a strategy, a proactive strategy to engage with these firms so that they understand what Parametric's strategies and solutions are, how we can help their clients, and then also work internally with departments at Parametric to understand what we need to do to better serve our institutional clients. I should probably take a step back and differentiate between institutional and individual clients. As Tim mentioned, he works with a lot of high net worth individuals and families. On the institutional side, we're talking about really large pools of assets, endowments, foundations, public pensions, defined benefit and defined corporation plans. Those are the institutional clients that my particular business serves. So it's a really interesting job. I would say it's about a third relationship management, it's a third sales, and then it's a third I've actually, these days, I would go with probably 50-50 right now. It's probably about 50% relationship management, about 50% sales or business development as we continue to look for new relationships and then manage the ones we have. I would have to say that, you know, like you, we've been challenged by COVID and challenged by operating and working from home and changing the very way that we interact with the people that we interact with on a daily basis. I think there's a lot of similarities. You know, a lot of my job was in person and meeting with folks, and those connections have had to stay very valid. And I would encourage you, as you reach out and look for internships and mentors, the communication is probably the #1 thing that you can do right now. Being responsive, and then speaking and writing clearly, especially now that a lot has turned to the written form. Being a good communicator is even more important. Now, we've got inside company, you know, jabber and things like that. I don't know what you guys might have for texting, for quick interactions with other associates. And I'll be honest, it's like a text for me. But the minute I write an email or talk to one of my clients, it is very formal. So that's one of the things that I'll just share with you in this time, as we all are virtual, is to just make sure your communication is crisp and clear as you start to look for opportunities. A little bit about my career path, so you have an understanding of some other types of jobs that might be out there. I am a 2002 graduate of Gonzaga, economics and history background. So if you rewind yourself back to 2002, 9/11 happened. And so my cohort of colleagues graduated in the middle of a recession. And so, you know, finding a job, quite honestly, I was thankful to have a job. And I landed at a great spot called Russell Mullen. Russell Mullen was an analytics business. I did a lot of indexes. So I started out on an index team. Indexes cover the universe, you know, the world, and kind of show you the companies within each different asset class in a specific area. So the Russell 1000, largest 1,000 companies in the United States. And you guys probably have an understanding of indexes. That was a good role, very data driven. I learned a lot about what I did not ever want to do again. I learned how to code, which for you guys is no big deal because everybody knows how to code. Back then it wasn't a prerequisite for life. And I didn't want to be stuck behind a computer. So I looked towards client facing roles. And that's when I switched over to Russell. At Russell, I held a variety of roles in client service, in sales, national accounts, and in consulting. So the last 6 years I spent in consulting, and I spoke and wrote and traveled a lot and talked about what was happening in the economy and markets, and worked with financial advisors and their clients. In 2016, I moved to Canterbury and went into a direct consulting role, so taking direct ownership over institutional clients and guiding them, giving them advice on asset allocation and manager choices within, you know, each of the different asset classes, among other things. In 2018, I moved over to Parametric and have the role that I have now. And, you know, one thing that I think I would also share with you, besides, you know, the more relevant current communication thing, is along the way, having a number of jobs, staying at one firm for 14 years, making the decision to leave firm and try something new. All of my roles, every choice I made was really, I made each decision based on the inventory that I had been taking since day one. So I told you that my first job was just a job. It was an entry-level operations job. But I learned a lot in that job. I learned about how to work with people. I learned how to communicate. I learned what I didn't like to do. I learned what my strengths are and what I could work on. And that was the inventory that I began to take. What am I good at? What do I need to practice at? What do I need to get better at? And what skill set do I need to build to get the next job? And so they all informed one another. In client service, I learned I needed to know how to sell. Learning how to sell, I needed to get better at relationship management. From relationship management, I had the opportunity to move into an education role and in the consulting route. So I would just encourage you all to do that. Each one of us has individual strengths that are different from one another, and the best thing that you can do for yourself is make sure that each next job that you take or try to go for is aligned with 1, your interests, and 2, your skill set. And then if you feel like there's a gap there, that you should do everything in your power to bridge that gap and close that gap as you start to learn about more jobs and opportunities ahead of you. So I'll pass it over now to the next speaker, and look forward to your questions.
There we go. Thank you. It's amazing to have someone else unmute you. It's very entertaining. So thank you, Jaylene. My name is Jill McEntee, and I'm actually not a Gonzaga alum. I am a Gonzaga parent. So I had a very different perspective and love everything about the school. And if I could go back in time, I would love to be a Gonzaga student. So I think you just have so many wonderful opportunities at the school and such a great environment. So in my role, let me back up. My career, I've always been in financial services in one form or another. You'll see a very big number on the right-hand side of the slide there with Russell Investments at 29 years. I've always been very, very interested, intrigued, compelled by the financial markets and, basically just how everything revolves in the space in general, if you will. So it's been a really fun and fabulous career. I would say that, to echo what Jaylene just mentioned, communication skills are everything. And I'll circle back to that in a minute. In my current role, I manage our summer intern program, and we have a wonderful FA apprentice program. DA Davidson is actually what you'd call a small to mid-sized regional broker-dealer. You hear from Tim and, the ultra high net worth group, right? We're one bump, maybe two bumps below an ultra high net worth firm. We're very, very focused on planning. So, we have very quiet money, if you will. And through our planning process, we're very, the role of our financial advisors is to really help our clients meet their goals. And a number of us on the session today, we all have the same objective. And helping our clients meet their goals can mean everything from keeping them from eating cat food in retirement, at the very extreme example, helping them pay for college, right? Getting kids through college is a huge goal of parents. I happen to have 3 kids. I have 2 through college, and my youngest started college on Zoom, much like you a week ago. So, it might be college, it might be that beach place or that lake cabin to facilitate and foster family gatherings. And then ultimately, it usually is, when it comes to planning, providing for security in retirement. And really what our financial advisors do is to help our clients have a roadmap, have a way to make decisions, and be there to consult with them as either things change for good or for better or for worse, right? For the good and the bad, but to be there walking with them on this roadmap towards retirement, in and through retirement. So, what I do is really early career work with young people who are interested in a career in financial advising. So again, hire, place, and train interns and financial advisor apprentices. As mentioned, I also train career changers. So if there are some people in the audience, maybe with a little bit of experience, we have a financial advisor kind of career changer program. And then again, I have this role in training. So my advice to people in the room here is to be curious. Even though I was at Russell for almost 30 years, I had a different job every 2 to 3 years, really. And if I didn't have an actual different role in a different department, I was always seeking increased responsibilities. So when you find that job, don't just sit at your desk, even if it's your virtual desk. Get out and get to know the people that you work with. Join the affinity groups. I know you might think, oh, that's for other people, that's not so much for me. Believe it or not, you're going to meet people there. You're going to meet people who work in other departments that you might be curious about. The classic line, can I buy you a cup of coffee, right? Spend 30 minutes with somebody, maybe once a month, to really try to get to know the people in your organization, see what's interesting and intriguing to them, see what their career path was, and you'll start to and really get better at both your communication skills, and really you'll get to know and start to form your own path in your career. So I wish all of you the best and look forward to engaging. Thanks, John.
Hey everybody, Zach Abbruzza, and I'm a vice president at JP Morgan in our treasury services wholesale payments business. So JP Morgan wholesale payments is treasury services, global trade, merchant services, and commercial card. It's about a $10 to $11 billion annual business for JP Morgan. And what we do is we work with clients, corporate treasurers, AP teams, cash managers, to work on their cash investments, their cash positioning, their payments, and traditionally it's been kind of a sleepy area of the bank, treasury services, but lately because of technology and regulations that have caused investment banking to be a little bit less profitable, large banks such as JP Morgan are becoming, putting more and more focus on the wholesale payments treasury services side of the business because it's fee-based, so it's annual. So when M&A activity slows down, capital markets activity slows down, we still have this consistent fee revenue. It also is how we bring balances, deposits into the bank so we can lend money out to our clients. So in my role, I cover a portfolio of about 50 clients on the West Coast. It's sales and relationship management. I specialize in the energy and power industry. So one of my clients is Avista Utilities in Spokane. So I've been at JP Morgan for about 2.5 years now. And, it's been interesting to see how this side of the business has grown. It used to be mostly just focused on working capital, cash investments, and just your standard AP and AR payments. But as Treasury has evolved due to technology, it's become also a strategic part of the business for our clients because we can help build payment products within their applications. So for example, like Grubhub, if you pay on the Grubhub app for your food, a JP Morgan payment process is embedded in that app. So that's just one example of kind of, where we can help our clients. And so I graduated from Gonzaga in 2015 and played in the baseball team while I was there and got an internship at PACCAR. And it was in a aftermarket support role. So analytics, kind of business analyst type role, which I ended up not liking at all. But through the internship program, I was able to meet the treasury department at PACCAR and got a full-time offer. Spent about 2 years there issuing our debt, working on derivatives, risk management, cash positioning, stuff like that. And I actually went to a conference and met the JP Morgan cash management team. And a couple years later, I applied for a job, and the guy that I had spoken with saw my name and put me to the top of the interview list. I ended up getting my job. So I joined the associate program, which is usually about 3 to 4 years. And I got promoted after about 18 months to vice president. And I'm learning a lot. It's interesting getting promoted to a new role where you have a lot of responsibility and you're trying to learn that over Zoom and phone calls. But it's definitely been fun, and I really enjoy working with clients and not sitting behind the desk as much. And on a personal level, like I said, I played Gonzaga baseball for 4 years. I met my wife at Gonzaga. She has 2 degrees. I'd say, just a couple quick pieces of advice. As you're networking and meeting new people, you never know who might have a job for you down the road. So, kind of the example is that I met that guy at a conference, and 2 years later he saw my name on the applicants list, and remembered our conversation and pulled me to the top. So that, and then also just, as you're networking now, just learn as much as you can, see what jobs are out there. I had no idea that treasury and wholesale payments was a thing when I was in college. So, just really try to reach out to a different, group of people and learn where you might be a good fit. So, that's it.
Can you guys hear me, John? Yeah, okay, thanks. John, thanks for putting this together. A great event, and appreciate everybody's time. I'm Stanford Wyatt. I graduated from Gonzaga in 2002 and earned my CFA charter in 2008. My career path, I started at Mercer Investment Consulting out of Gonzaga, and as Jaylene mentioned, that's a institutional consulting firm that was a great experience, understanding from a high level what the markets are all about, understanding different investment strategies and styles, and helping institutional clients position their portfolios across many asset classes. So that was my first job out of college, and that was great experience. And then from there, 2007, I moved to a long-short public equity fund called Archon Capital in Seattle, and that was a small fund. And I guess I should have prefaced this by saying I'm still working in public equity, so this was kind of my first entree into public equity. And it was a small fund, which was great experience, as I learned a lot about the investment management business. At a small fund, you find you have your finger in a lot of different areas of business. My primary focus was research, but also just understanding what it takes to manage a portfolio, what it takes to raise money, what it takes from a compliance perspective. And so I worked there for 10 years, for over 10 years. And during that time, I developed an understanding of what I was interested in terms of research. Most of my day-to-day time there was spent doing deep due diligence on companies in the public equity markets that we would invest in. And so I learned a lot there in terms of research, built out a network of people that I'd exchanged information with, understood what was important in terms of valuing businesses, and found that was really my passion. So about 2 years ago, I started my own fund called August Partners, and we invest in public equity. Again, same strategy in terms of doing deep research on these companies, understanding what drives the business model, and valuing the company, what it might be worth, and then looking for situations in the public equity market where the equity value may be mispriced for some reason. So that's what I'm doing now, and most of my focus and time is spent researching companies. Although I'm also running the business in terms of raising money, working with some third-party service providers to do the accounting for my firm, and do taxes, do kind of administration. There's compliance, so there's a lot that goes into to managing a small business. But yeah, most of my time is spent on the public equity research, which is really what I enjoy. And if anybody wants to get into kind of the specifics of the strategy, or individual examples, I'm happy to talk through that later on. And then, as John mentioned earlier, I think it's an unusual time with COVID and everybody being remote. But I think, as he mentioned, there's some positives, and I think in terms of the public equity research aspect, it seems like things have really been democratized. When you look at what the business was prior to COVID, a lot of the way information was exchanged was big funds that could pay high fees to go to conferences and interact with management teams. And now all that's available, you know, over Zoom. All these conference presentations are available for the small investor, for the individual investor to watch. And so I think that's a big positive as I think of you know, college students that may be interested in getting into the public equity markets. There's so much information that's available out there now that you guys can really take advantage of. And so I think that's one you know, positive from your perspective, that you know, if you're interested in doing research, just go to the company's investor relations page and start poking around, and you'll find you'll find a lot of these presentations, or you know, go to YouTube and watch the CEO give a talk and just see, you know, what he's all about as a person, what he's describing you know, the future looks like for the company. I think that's a really a valuable resource that you know, again, there's just more of it now than ever before. So that's, I think, something you guys can take advantage of. And I think another thing is just, if you're interested in public equity, I mean, just start doing it on your own. There's again, you know, get on Twitter and start exchanging ideas with people, or get on one of the research kind of exchange platforms like Seeking Alpha or SumZero, that sort of thing. And, you know, just start doing it. Like I said, you've got access to the same information that big funds do. And start just honing your skills, understanding what you're interested in, and what sort of companies you like, what investment style, you know, suits your temperament and your psychology. And just, yeah, like I said, just start doing research and writing things up. And when you write up an investment idea, I think that's, you know, one of the best ways to get your foot in the door for a potential job is having you know, an idea or two, or a list of ideas that you've done over time that you can share with a potential employer. Because I think people that can analyze companies, that's a lot more valuable to an employer than somebody that just has a degree or a CFA. I think people, you know, and employers like to see actual kind of investment thesis and ideas and thought process. So that's, you know, that's my recommendation. I think too, just as people are more comfortable with Zoom, your potential list of job opportunities is probably bigger. I mean, you know, working remotely might not be ideal, but I think there's a lot more potential for it now. You know, working for a firm on the East Coast or doing something else, and maybe smaller firms are more open to that. But you know, feel free to reach out to people that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have, and express interest, or express interest in working remotely, even, you know, part-time, or foot in the door, or whatever you can do. Because I think there is value in especially, you know, research firms that want to have people around the country for various reasons, companies that are you know, spread out across the US or across the world, and having a different perspective is helpful. So yeah, as John said, I think try and take away some positives from what's happened, and use it to your advantage, because the information and the opportunities that are out there are a lot bigger in a way now. So that's it for me, but happy to take any questions later on.
So Michael, you just muted me for 40 minutes. So that was pretty painful. Yeah, just thank you, everybody. Tim, Jaylene, Jill, Zach, Stanford, just tremendous insight. I think just some of the takeaways for me, Jaylene, you said you learned what you to know what you didn't want to do. And I think that's, and I think, Jill, many years in her first company, but never doing the same thing, right? Keep moving. And again, Zach, not really thinking about what he's doing now, but, being in one job that leads to the next opportunity. I think Tim as well, right? Moving into an area that he kind of figured out what he wanted to do, and then he moved towards that. Stanford, I'm a business owner as well. So I had to chuckle with how do you spend your days? And there's a lot more to owning a business than just the title. So I can sympathize with that. So yeah, just some great wisdom there. Be curious. Network like crazy. And I would say, to Stanford's point, companies, before COVID, they would say, well, we have an internship, but of course you have to be here, right? I mean, it's an internship and you have to come to the office. Now there are remote internships. So you could actually do an internship remotely, and that opportunity wasn't there before. So I think, getting comfortable on Zoom, being willing to do a remote internship is something that really had not existed in financial services prior to COVID. And that's a new opportunity that people should think about. So we'll go through some other slides here that we put together, and these are just a reference for students. And again, we welcome your questions, and I assume that people are able to use the chat to put in their questions right now. So this is, if you're studying finance, or maybe double major finance accounting, Jaylene, she started with econ, which is also highly analytical. So you're getting this degree, and within the financial services industry, what are kind of the buckets or the types of industries that you can that you can find yourself in. So here's kind of a summary of them, and we'll go through them one at a time. So go ahead, Michael. So, again, huge employer is commercial banking. And I started out in commercial banking, fantastic training. I was trained as a corporate lending officer. And again, it's the three financial statements, and learning how to do modeling. And those are really just fundamental skills, whether you're sell side, buy side, lending. And the banks just do a fantastic job of training analysts. So if you look at the Pacific Northwest, who are the big players here? Top three: B of A, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, and then some regional banks as well. So those are great institutions to get your foot in the door and start a career in financial services. Michael. So really, this is the investment advisor side. I don't know if these broker numbers and employee numbers are 100% accurate, but this is again a little bit not on the private wealth management side is maybe more of a full service, where this is more of investment advisors. So again, big three, big five: Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Wells Fargo, D.A. Davidson's regional, as is KMS. So again, just some great companies in the region here, Michael. And then on the wealth management side, again, Brighton Jones, Freestone, Laird Norton, Coldstream, Cornerstone, which we'd mentioned. So some very large local companies as well. On the asset management side, the big two, Russell and again, the Parametric and Russell are really global companies that happen to be headquartered in the Pacific Northwest. So, really take advantage of all of the ZEGs that are associated with those two companies. Those would be definitely ones to target, Michael. On the investment banking side, so Chinook is a M&A advisory firm. D.A. Davidson is more full service investment banking. Cascadia is probably the largest an M&A advisory firm focused on middle market in this market. Goldman has continued to expand in the Pacific Northwest. So again, there's just a list of some of the investment banking M&A firms in the region. And private equity, so these are companies that are acquiring control stakes in privately held businesses. Endeavor started in Portland. They have offices in Seattle and in Los Angeles. Blue Point's based in Seattle and Cleveland. Evergreen, Arable focuses on food, and then some other smaller private equity shops. And on the VC side, so more early stage, a lot of tech, again, Seattle with Amazon and Microsoft in our backyard sees a lot of startup opportunities. Fraser Healthcare is, again, globally renowned healthcare VC fund based here in the Pacific Northwest. So, definitely a name if you're interested in healthcare and pharmaceuticals, a name to focus on. And on the corporate side, a lot of the large corporates here do have M&A groups. Amazon has a VC fund and an M&A team. Microsoft has an M&A team. Starbucks, a number of joint ventures that they're working on. So whether you look at these as maybe a future, a second step, or connect with them now. Again, another alternative career path. So just wanted to give some thoughts on, breaking in to a career and my favorite slide, why are you here? Why are you in college? What do you want to achieve in your 4 years in college? Or maybe you have 3 left or 2 left or 1 left, I think time can kind of slip through your fingers pretty quickly. And, I'd really encourage you to think about if your goal is to do networking, if your goal is to explore different industries, if your goal is to connect with ZAG alum, make it happen. Have priorities and, just go ahead and be bold, be courageous, and reach out to the finance community. I think, generally finance professionals are willing to spend time with college students and welcome, the opportunity to network. I think, Jill, it was you said, let's have a cup of coffee. I mean, right now we have Zoom coffees, right? Hey, would you be willing to do a Zoom call for 20 minutes? I'd love to learn about what you do, your company, your career path, and whatnot. And again, nobody has ever been in college during a pandemic. You're the first ones. Congratulations. And, so set the standard, right? I mean, yes, I was in college during a pandemic, but that opened a lot of doors and opportunities for me, which I took advantage of. So really just be thoughtful, think about your priorities. And, I do think that the fact, we are in a pandemic, that creates a lot of challenges. It creates opportunities as well. Zooming, it's tricky. I mean, even just us doing this panel right now, it's pretty tricky, right? How do you really Zoom with professionals? So here's just some tips that we just like to throw out there. So one is, you really need to be on top of your game for your LinkedIn profile. I would, if you have mentors, if you have other professionals, professors, just say, hey, give me feedback on my LinkedIn profile. What do you think? Is this really best practice? And the same thing with the resume. You have to be open to criticism and critique, and make sure that you have just a top-notch, error-free resume. If you are having a Zoom call, I think preparation is key. So just really, who are you meeting? Read their LinkedIn profile, go to their company's website, read some news, do some Google research on it. So really, come in prepared, get to your Zoom meeting early, have a professional Zoom environment. I don't know, mine is not great. I'm here in my home office, but, make sure your camera angle is properly. We interviewed an intern candidate, and I'm serious, the whole time the interview was like this, and we tried to tell him to adjust his camera, but he just couldn't do it. So, and it was hard. It was distracting, and it created a little bit of a negative impression just because of the angle of his Zoom camera. Just dress professionally. Nice job. I don't know if Stanford and Tim, if you guys are wearing collared shirts every day, but I certainly appreciate that. I know you're wearing gym shorts below the waist as well.
Exactly.
And I just networking questions. The rule number one, people love to talk about themselves. Oh God. So yeah, just, tell me about you. Tell me about your career path. Why did you pick this job? I can see from your LinkedIn profile, why did you do that? What's a typical day like for you? How much training did you receive when you started your position? Just really open-ended questions that whoever, you're doing a networking call, that you've been thoughtful about some questions to ask, and again, in terms of creating a connection, and then really learning something from the call. I think, the last one, what advice, would you have, for, someone like me? I think that's a really important question, because it opens the door for that person to help you. They may not, might say, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Or they might say, yeah, I think there's a couple other people that you may want to talk to as well. And then they can open up those opportunities. But I think it's always good to ask that last question. What advice do you have for me? LinkedIn is a phenomenal resource. It's really your professional networking data bank, and if there is a premium version of LinkedIn, I think it costs another $60 a month. It depends how hungry you are, maybe how wealthy you are, and if you need to network either for a job after graduation or for an internship, you really want to be active in LinkedIn, and certainly it's easy to find Zag alum through LinkedIn as well as other resources at Gonzaga. So I think just last few slides here before we get to Q&A. Freshman year, I think attending this event, if you're a freshman online, great job. Get great grades, and start to learn about all the resources on campus, and just explored different things, different types of industries, different types of companies, attend career treks, and start to to think about that internship between your freshman and sophomore year. I think in your sophomore year, you're probably trying to lean towards a little bit more what you're going to major in. So I think more networking, informational interviews, and more attentive to handshake and applying for that summer internship. Some of the internship have deadlines in September and October for the following summer. So even as we speak right now, I mean, we're 2 days to the end of September. Some of the summer internship close in 2 days. So you really have to be on top of your game and pay attention to handshake. Junior year, I think just, more of the same, but, I think that junior year internship is really key. And it takes a lot of work. So, and that can really position you, maybe for a job with that company, assuming you do well in that internship, or, position you to be a very strong candidate upon graduation. Yeah, and then the senior year, obviously, start applying for those jobs, and everything on the previous slides equally apply. Yeah, so Michael, maybe I'll hand this over to you for questions, and if you want to direct those to certain individuals, go ahead and do that. Or if they're general questions, maybe the panelists can raise their hands and you can unmute them.
Yeah, and maybe before that, John, I know there was a couple of panelists that want to talk about their internship programs. Jaylene, did you want to take a second to talk about parametrics?
There we go. Yeah, I didn't mention it before, but Parametric does have a summer internship program. Many other companies ran their internship programs. We did too. We shifted pretty quickly from the real come to the office internship to a virtual internship. Our hope is that we can hold, the internship some combination of in-person and hybrid for this upcoming summer. But you're looking at a time period from about mid-June till about mid-August, so that aligns nicely with Gonzaga's academic calendar year. Our jobs are posted, so they are out on Parametric's website. I think there's 5 different positions. 2 of the positions might have 1 or 2 positions available. So I spoke with our recruiter who does the internship recruitment, just for a couple of pieces of advice for all of you. And he shared this. He said, do your research. Do your research on the company. Apply early for internships and apply for the one that aligns with your interests. Don't do this like spray and pray. Like there's 6 different positions. Look at the different positions and see which one would be most interesting to you and apply to that one. He says they are inundated, just absolutely swamped with resumes that come in for these internships. And so, to John's point, make sure yours is error-free. Make sure it aligns with, you share what you've done. And it can be whatever you've done aligns to that position. And then also, he just said right now in this virtual world that we're working in, responsiveness is key. So that's something you could pull out and highlight in your resume, in your application, how, there's different ways to show that you're responsive. And then he also said collaboration is super important right now. So pick out those things in jobs you had, no matter what they are, and be able to translate those skills into, what someone's looking for. And I think that that's one of the biggest things, is your ability to translate your work and your life experiences into the role. You may not have had an internship before. I totally get that. Believe me, I never had an internship. I delivered Chinese food. I painted. I did lots of things that had nothing to do with finance. But my ability to translate what I learned in those experiences to how they would apply and help me in a business environment were absolutely critical. So in a lot of ways, you got to sell yourself. The way to sell yourself, number 1, is on that resume. Make sure it's tight and clean. Get them in early and do your research on companies. Those were a couple things. And take a look at Parametric. It'd be great. It's a great place to work. Great place to work.
Great. And any other panelists have some other thoughts that they'd like to share before we go into Q&A? Okay. Jill?
So this is a simple thing, and I echo what Jaylene just said, but one of the issues we run into with college students, and it sounds so ridiculous, but is your voicemail is full. Now, I, as a professional, am not going to reply or respond to you over social media. I will call you and leave you a message, or I will send you an email. And I've found in my 3 years of working with college students that those are the two least likely places that college students tend to look on a regular basis. So please keep that in mind. As a last resort, I will text you if I really, really want to talk to you. But if you don't return my phone call, or I can't leave you a message, and you don't return my email over, 24 hours, I'm moving on. So 2 simple things to keep in mind, along with what Jaylene said, as you are looking for internships. And also, a quick plug, check out the DA Davidson internships and our financial advisor apprentice program for those of you who are very compelled to careers in personal wealth management, private wealth management. Thank you.
Yeah, just to share a similar, Jill, we had an intern candidate that sent me a LinkedIn message. And I said, thank you for your message. Let's please correspond to my work email.
Right. Yeah.
And I had sent them an email to set up an interview for the internship. And then 2 weeks later, he got back to me and gave me the times, and I just said, we filled it, right? I mean,
right.
So if you're in the hunt for an internship, the expectations are you're getting back to somebody within 24 hours.
And not on Instagram, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to be, fairly responsive. Not that I care. It's just that that's what your competitors are doing, right? So, the top people get the internships, and the top people are organized and they're on the ball and they're responsive. So, if you want to be in the hunt, you really need to have those behavior characteristics.
And if you don't know somebody's email, send them. Well, you can do 2 things. You can check the contact section in LinkedIn, and you can find all my contact information. Most of us probably have our contact information there. And a LinkedIn in-mail isn't a terrible introduction, but I agree with John. Switch to regular email as fast as you can, especially when the person you're communicating with asks you to do that.
Great, thank you both. And anything else before we go into Q&A? All righty. Okay, I have a couple of questions here from really mostly directed to the whole panel. I think the first one that I saw in the chat was, what are your tips for, we talked about Zoom networking, but what about Zoom interviewing? I think that's a very important topic that we should talk about, especially during this time. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know who wants to get started first, maybe Stanford or Tim, or you guys have any tips regarding that?
You want to go, Tim? I haven't personally done much Zoom interviewing, so I'm probably not the best person to speak on this. But I think everything John laid out was pretty good there on his slides about just being professional and being prepared.
Yeah, Zoom interviewing is incredibly challenging, and you think about the nervousness we've all had interviewing in person. You take that up to the next level when you're doing it in this format, and it can be incredibly nerve-wracking. I think, like anything, it's practice, and really practice getting comfortable. Using this form of communication. Practice with friends, family, whoever you can, to go through some of the questions that will likely be asked of you. Go through your resume, practice that pitch that you have. The other thing I'd say is keep the environment professional. John had a lot of these tips on the slide, but keep the environment professional. Make sure you are dressed appropriately for the job. A lot of us might be in jeans and a t-shirt, even shorts and a t-shirt on a normal day, just working from home. But when you're interviewing, dress like you want the job, dress professionally. There's almost no such thing as being overdressed for a job. So dress like you want the job and make sure that you are presenting yourself in the way that you want to be perceived and that people know you really are hungry for it.
Zach, any thoughts from you? I think you wanted to share.
Tim covered a lot of it. I was just going to say, make sure your background is professional. You're not like in your dorm room with a Gonzaga flag in the background and like a 6-pack or something. So, just make sure if you're not able to get to a professional place, use a professional virtual background. Dress appropriately, and yeah, that was just kind of my advice.
Yep. Jill or Jaylene?
I appreciate you unmuting me. There's one thing I would add. I think one of the hardest things about the virtual environment versus being in person is energy, and getting the right level of energy and being able to show that. We had a group that we engage with as a firm for speaking come in and give us tips to how to do better at our job virtually, and that was one of their big things. Was actually to stand. And so I'm not doing it right now, but I would encourage you to do it, is to set up, if you feel like standing gives you a better energy and brings your light, brings it to the virtual field, make sure you do that. And I have found that when it's time for a big meeting for us, a finals presentation, and we're looking at a board of a multi-billion-dollar pension plan, I got to stand. I got to make sure that it's just like I was right there in front of them. And so it also gives you the ability to actually step back a little bit farther from the computer too, which I think helps with eye contact, because that's another thing you'll find with the virtual environment. Like right now I'm looking directly at my camera, but my camera is attached to my computer. So if I look over here, even if it's just my eyes, you can see them do everything. And so I think taking a step back from your computer also allows you to sort of talk right into the camera and makes better connection with the person on the other side.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jaylene. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. If you're talking to somebody and their eyes are talking, but they're looking in a different direction, it's very distracting. So you really, you stop listening to that person and you start asking yourself, what the hell are they looking at? Right. Like I'm here, look at me, So great, just great advice. Wonderful.
Jill, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Thank you. The one thing that I would add is that for the discerning candidate, this is a fabulous opportunity because you can take a moment, spend an hour working on your Zoom studio. Jaylene's right. You have to learn how to talk right into the light, right into the camera. Makes you feel a little bit like a news anchor woman, but it does take a little practice. But given this Zoom environment, the candidate, have the opportunity to create a clean background with good lighting, a round ring light to better light your room here. $30, Amazon Prime, fabulous investment. Bring up your laptop with a couple of textbooks. You remember what those are, right? With a couple of books to keep your camera at eye level or above. Clean your background. I've seen tequila bottles. I cannot tell a lie. I've seen tequila bottles. 1 hour of work will help you set yourself up for success in a better situation because you've taken that opportunity. It is an unprecedented time, and making your Zoom environment, your Zoom studio, as I like to call it, better than your competition, is something that you can so easily do. I'd say go for it.
Great.
Yeah, so I think next question here is, I think it's, like we talked about earlier, very important to, spend the 15, 20 minutes, even up to an hour, doing that research before you have an introductory meeting or an interview. What are your, tips, advice, best places to start when, researching a company? And and also, researching the position.
I'll kick off here, and the other panelists can join in. LinkedIn is incredible, right? So if you're networking with someone and you haven't looked at their LinkedIn profile, you are disrespecting that person's time, right? I mean, if your question is, so tell me, what did you do before your this job? I mean, what you're telling that person is I didn't look at your LinkedIn profile and I'm not prepared for this interview, right? So it'd be better to say, hey, I see that, in your last job, you worked for XYZ company and then you changed to this company. What are some of the reasons why you changed, jobs? I mean, so ask an informed question rather than a question that demonstrates that you've done no preparation.
Yeah, I think in addition, I always like to just use Google to see if the company's been in the news recently, whether, depending on, the company, if they've, recently acquired, went through an M&A transaction, if they're starting a new project, any sort of news announcement that, you can be, on top of, that helps just to be, in the know about, what's going on at the company, where they're headed, specifically if anything excites you, if there's something that you even want to bring up. But it helps to be prepared in case, they talk about it or you want to bring it up. So.
Look at the company's website, right? I mean, I might be the oldest person on the panel, and when I was looking for jobs, you had to right away for the annual report. Can you believe that today? No. Use your skills that are so readily available. Go to Google, read about what's important to the company, read about their culture, read about some of their cultural, awards, read about their diversity and inclusion, especially right now. So much is available to you right at your fingertips that as I think Michael just mentioned, you'd be foolish not to have questions at the ready about a company's culture.
Great. Anything else on this question? Oh, yep, Jaylene.
Yeah, look at the website. Look at what they, especially for large firms, look at their research and commentary, because to Jill's point, that'll share, kind of insights into the firm. Larger companies just have a better HR part of their website to tell you what our culture does, and hey, we do social events, and we've got a great giving committee, and here's how we volunteer, and here's what we do, and you can get lunch or you can't get lunch on. You can bring your dog, you can't bring your dog, you can work virtually, you can't work virtually. Those are all shared for big companies. For smaller companies, you might have to work a little harder. I think if there's a job and you see someone on LinkedIn that and say, do you know anything about this job? I mean, often you can ask that person, especially if you've been doing a good job networking, to just say, hey, Jaylene, do you know anything about the client relations group at Parametric? Do you work with them? And where I never worked in that job, I can pretty quickly get you an answer about what the primary function is of the role and the team, and a little bit more insight. So I think it goes back to your network should help you, your networking should help you as you look for jobs, and doing that research beforehand. If you are looking at any of the, we were talking about private wealth management, institutional wealth management, any firm that is regulated by the SEC is going to have something called an ADV. It's not the annual report, that's a publicly traded company, but an ADV or a Part 2 ADV pretty much gives you the entire rundown of any investment advisory firm out there. It'll tell you what they're doing, how they're doing it, who their clients are, what types of investments they have. And so, even in my role, I have all the ADVs stored for all of the institutional consultants that I work with, because it just gives you so much insight into that type of company. So specifically for those, there's another avenue that you can do.
Jaylene, what does ADV stand for?
I don't know. I could Google it real quick. I'm blanking on it. It's the public disclosure. It's just the Form ADV. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. And if you
Great.
go to the SEC, you can look that up. It's the Public Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website is what you'd be looking for.
Okay, a couple more questions here. One on materials and preparation. I think, on the equity research side, for example, there have been questions on, should I prepare a, portfolio or an equity, assignment in advance to share at my interview? Should I, talk about, the market? How do I talk about the market? Maybe the panelists can give some, input on, on the equity side, and maybe Stanford, this relates to you, but the preparation regarding going into an interview that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I did want to add one piece to the last question. I think a good resource also is Glassdoor, especially for the bigger companies, because if you click through that site, a lot of times you can see the interview questions that interviewers will or interviewees will have written on there. So just to give yourself another leg up, especially for bigger companies like Amazon or whatever, if you're looking at corporate finance jobs, you can find interview questions, and also you can look at Microsoft for corporate finance jobs and what are typical questions that come up in those interviews. So I think that's also a valuable resource to use. But yeah, in terms of preparation, I would say public equity, like I was saying earlier, I mean, there's so much information out there. I would say if you want to give yourself the best possible shot, you definitely should have a written example of your work and your thesis, how you research a company, and kind of what your thought process is, how you arrived at your thesis. And I think that's, it's good to show. And I think it's, something you can use, on multiple occasions, and kind of just keep it updated. But, if I were interviewing somebody for a public equity job, I think that's just table stakes. And, the advantage there too, is it gives you the chance to prepare that all in advance, as opposed to going into an interview and having to kind of come off the cuff and think up an idea. So I think that's a great way. And like I was saying, there's so much information out there that you can kind of hone your skills ahead of time and start exchanging ideas, even just on different platforms. Like I mentioned, Seeking Alpha is a big one, Value Investors Club, and SumZero, and some of those other websites where you can write up your idea, and you can do it, you can do it anonymously too, and put it out there and see if you get any feedback, and kind of continue to hone your skills. And in terms of the market news, I think, again, it's important to be as up to speed as possible, and it depends on who you're interviewing with and where. But of course, you want to have the background on the firm and what their investment strategy is, and what their style is, and what sort of investments they're looking at making, and then get as up to speed on that sector or that style as you can, and understand, bigger funds file their holdings publicly, so you can go to the SEC website and pull down their holdings and just say, look, I know you're interested in, or your biggest holding is Amazon, and here's my thoughts on Amazon, or just be prepared to make conversation about it. You don't have to write it up necessarily, but again, understanding what situation you're going into, what's the firm all about, and again, it's just research and preparation. And so yeah, I would say it's at least for public equity, having an example of your work and being prepared on the market are definitely just they're musts for an interview. So
yeah, great. Appreciate it, Stanford. So kind of one last question. I think this is a very good question.
Yeah, and then maybe, I don't know if Ken or Dr. Shu, if they want to come in here and wrap us up, or I can do it. So just let Michael know. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. So last question. So I'm a Gonzaga student. I'm interested in networking. So I go on LinkedIn, or I find an email and I email message and I don't hear back. What do I do? Yep, Zach.
Don't be afraid to follow up. Don't badger people, after a couple of times, maybe move on to the next contact, give them a week or two, follow back up. We're all very busy. And sometimes I'll get an email while I'm on a call and I'll be like, oh, I mean to respond to that later, and I'll just forget. Follow up with people, but in a reasonable manner. But follow up.
Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Just in terms of following up, don't be persistent. People want to know that you're hungry, they want to know you're interested in the opportunity. If somebody doesn't respond, give them a week, maybe two, and then follow up again and see if you can get them to spur action. So many of us are busy. I have young kids that are running around the house behind me and homeschooling. So it is, we're all juggling a lot right now. It doesn't mean we're not going to carve out the time to help out a student, but it's just going to be even tougher to do now. So, but don't be afraid to be persistent and let people know you're interested. But as John was saying earlier, be prepared, be courteous about people's time, be respectful. And I think asking for 30 minutes is not too much for people to give. So be persistent.
And I think Jill had mentioned in the past too, the power of a written thank you card to follow up. I think that's probably more valuable now than ever, just given how inundated people are with the digital, digital world and too many emails and too many, messages on every various platform. So I think that's a great way too, to make sure people get your message, and a thank you is a great follow-up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think sending a thank you email is a minimum. Being thoughtful about what you say, maybe say, something you said really stuck with me. Personalize it is key. I would say, rule of thumb, send the thank you email within 24 hours. And if you really want to aim for that top 1-2%, then write the personal card, get a stamp, put it in the mail. So it makes a difference, really does.
Jill, did you have anything else that you want to say?
I would my one caution about writing thank you notes right now. I haven't been to my office in the Columbia Tower since March 2nd.
That's
so I really do agree with John's rule. Your email, thank you, 24-hour rule, fabulous. Right now, I don't know. I'm not getting any thank you cards, so that would be my only. So just know your audience, right? If people know I'm not in the office, there you go.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think I'll bring us to a close. I would say, Michael, I don't know if you can unmute everybody, or if everybody can show themselves. We started with 33. We ended with 25. So I think we had an attentive audience. I hope that Zags out there that attended, that you found this time useful. We look forward to doing this event next year, hopefully in person. And again, if any questions for any of us, we're pretty passionate about helping students, as you can see. So feel free to reach out. And Ken, I don't know if you're online, or Dr. Shu. Why don't you go ahead and close us out here?
I just want to say thank you again to our panel, Stanford and Jill and Michael and John and Zach, Jaylene, and of course, Tim. One spin, by the way, Jill, the other day, I hand wrote a thank you note. I scanned it and sent it via email.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
There you go. Creative points too.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a wonderful event. And for the students who don't know, this was the first of its kind back in the day. And we have since expanded that to many of our other disciplines, careers in marketing, careers in HR, etc. But it's really a testament to the folks that are in front of you today, many of them, as well as others who made this such a great event over time. So thank you to everybody for coming today. Make sure you stay safe and be well. And if we can do anything to help you out, just let me know. Thank you.